Hello, everyone. I'm Jennifer Lang, the co-president of LesDamesNY, New York, also known as LDNY. Welcome to the third annual Next Big Sip. This is a yearly beverage industry event organized by the New York chapter of LesDames, LDNY. This year's event is titled The Silver Lining, Revelations in the Beverage World. This is a companion event to the Next Big Bite, which is presented by LDNY each fall to analyze and predict trends in the future of food. We thank Jonathan Gross, Senior Vice President at Investors Bank, for arranging the sponsorship for this evening. We look forward to our new alliance with Investors Bank and are deeply grateful for their support. We also thank 750.com, an award-winning online magazine about the business and culture of the beverage and alcohol industry and an important resource for professionals and consumers. Please look in the brochure that we sent you for more information about these wonderful sponsors. Amy Zavada will be moderating our illustrious panel. Amy writes about spirits and wine for many publications and has written several books on those subjects. She has earned her level 3 certification from the Wine and Spirits Education Trust and continues her education every chance she gets by traveling to distilleries and wineries around the country and the world. We are proud to count her as an active member of LDNY. Amy, take it away.
Thank you so much, Jen. And hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the 2022 edition of LesDamesNY's The Next Big Sip. A couple of housekeeping rules. We will be recording this and it will be available after for you. If you can put yourselves on mute so that we can make sure that all the panelists are heard when they're speaking, that would be terrific. And if you have any questions for our panelists, I ask that you just hold them to the end, and then I will make sure that all of your pressing queries are answered at that point, at the end of the session. You know, I'm thrilled on International Women's Day, very cool, to spend the next hour having this conversation with this amazing group of women professionals in the beverage industry. We have tonight Karen Newman, one of my favorite beverage industry journalists. She is the spirits editor for WineEnthusiast, which maybe you all know, or you should know, be reading her articles because they're fantastic and always on trend. And she is also the author of several really excellent cocktail books that I highly recommend you go out and seek out. We also have the fantastic and formidable Philana Bouvier, president and visionary for Demeine Estates, an importer and distributor of such fine wines as Heights Cellar, Burgess, Stony Hill, Brendel, Ink Grade, and Champagne Le Gras and Haas. We also have Alisa Bowens-Mercado, our very first brewer on this panel, and I hope not our last, who is the founder of Rhythm Brewing and the Rhythm Brewing Company in New Haven, Connecticut. And she is on a mission to bring back the beauty of lagers. And she is also a drummer and a salsa dancer, which, you know, you might want to ask her about that later too. It's pretty cool. We also have the very dynamic and super cool Lydia Richards, owner of the wine consulting company VinoConcierge, which does everything from wine education to events to tastings, and also the co-founder with Maria Calvert of the organization Hispanics In Wine, which we'll be talking to her about later, and I'm super excited about that too. Oh, and she also works for Taub Family Wines. I don't know how this woman finds any time in the day to do all of these things, but she does because she's so amazing. Unfortunately, our fifth panelist had to drop out at the last minute. She got sick from her toddler. She doesn't have COVID, but she's just down and out, and she's so sad. Robin Epperson McCarthy, wonderful winemaker from Saltbird Cellars on the North Fork of Long Island. I highly recommend you seek out her wines. They're fantastic. Thanks to each of you really for taking the time to do this tonight and for your expertise and for your knowledge and for your candor over the next hour. I don't think it's overstating it to say that the last 2 years have been really hard and really crazy in the world at large and certainly in the beverage industry. But I believe there are some lasting positive effects that are coming out of this for our industry. I don't want to sound like a Pollyanna, but I do believe that good can be grabbed from bad. And with that in mind, we're seeing a lot of interesting and unexpected trends in front of us right now, and some more pivotal industry shifting movements that I know we're all heartened to see happening and to participate in. Every day I get this email. It's a quote of the day. And, some of them mean something, some of them don't. But last week there was a really great one that came from Alice Walker. And she wrote, "The most common way people give up their power is by thinking that they don't have any." I'm sure there have been times that we've all felt powerless in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic. But there have been exciting ways that people have kept their power or found it over the last 2 years, from adapting to new ways of doing business when old methods didn't apply, to opening doors and opportunities for people in our community who are being historically marginalized and simply not accepting that as normal anymore, to bold moves of making space where it didn't exist. And that really speaks to the message of our founder, Carol Brock, who created LesDamesNY, because there wasn't space for women in the culinary arena. And she said, you know what, I'm going to make it happen. And she did. And cheers to her. And boy, do we miss her. But instead of me droning on about all of this, I really want to talk to these women, and I know you want to hear what they have to say. So, let's kick it off with Lydia. I really want to talk about, just since we're on Zoom right now, let's talk about this whole virtual arena. So many of us spend so much time on it. We've gotten used to it. We didn't know what it was years ago. Now it's such a normal part of life. For you and your business, VinoConcierge, you really had to rely on this quite a bit, I think, for virtual tastings, for education, for presentations. Like, how has that shaken out for you? Did it change and broaden your audience? Is it here to stay in some hybrid way? And how do you see it shaken out?
No, absolutely. Thank you again, everybody, for having me. I'm so excited to be in this virtual room with these incredible women. So yes, going back to your question, the virtual world has obviously, the pandemic kind of closed us off, but it also opened a lot of doors, especially for us, with small businesses. I started VinoConcierge in 2017, and, I had my small group of clients here and there, but once the pandemic hit and people were trying to find different ways to entertain themselves at home, I used to get so many new inquiries from people, not only in the US, but abroad. And obviously, because I can speak Spanish, I got people from my home country in Panama, people in Puerto Rico, people in Spain that were interested in learning about wine, but they wanted to learn about wine from maybe somebody that looked a little bit like them, somebody a little bit younger, because they had this idea of what a sommelier looks like. So obviously getting that exposure, and with obviously we'll talk about that later with the murder of George Floyd and whatnot, I think people really started to look at the different spaces to shape the wine industry, which we are there. We've always been there. It's just maybe we haven't just gotten the recognition we deserve. So it certainly opened a lot of doors for me. And I think it is here to stay. I think maybe people might be zoomed out a little bit at this point, but I think it will stay here at a hybrid level for sure.
I kind of like it. I find that it's a time saver. In addition to letting me hear voices and opinions of people who aren't ones who are here all the time, they're from away. And, Philana, I'd love to actually get your take on this, like for the trade and for, giant wine tastings. Or are we just going to go back to giant wine tastings? Is there any room for this in the virtual world? What do you think?
Yes, the pandemic taught us a lot, right? It taught us that people want to live in the moment now. And it taught us about authenticity, taught us about being more genuine. And what you're seeing is wineries are about what people need to be thinking more about is experience, and being able to create experience that's lifelong and lasting and can create a memory. So I think, in my opinion, and looking at even the luxury wine business, is that it's better than ever in a lot of ways. The millennial generation and the drinkers have actually made us think better. Marketing has to be cleaner. You have to be more authentic in your messaging, and you have to be able to back it up, because you will get researched. And you have to make sure that your message is on point and it's real, and you have to hire diverse and you have to recruit diverse. So there are some positive things that came from the pandemic, because it taught everyone that it is important to be honest and open and authentic and diverse. If you're not going to make it. And that's, I think what it also did is it wiped the playing field. It leveled everybody out and you get to start fresh. And I think that's very important, especially in this business.
Yeah, absolutely. One world that it's really hard to be virtual is the bar world, because people really go to bars to see each other. They're greeting and meeting places. Kara, I was hoping you could talk about this a little bit. We're on a good track. People are going out again. We've got a COVID pill that we can take. If we get sick, we are dropping mask mandates. There's all kinds of stuff going on. Do you think the bar business or bars are just going to go back to the way they were before the pandemic? Are there changes that have happened? And what are consumers, what do they want? And what are they asking for now?
I think there's still a lot of confusion about what people want. People aren't really there yet, but definitely people are going back slowly. We're seeing, at least what I'm seeing is people are of two minds right now. There are some people who, like me, are being a bit more cautious. And when I go out, I want things to be, just right. I want things to justify the right now very considerable expense of going out. Things have gotten very expensive. You've got your $21 martinis these days. And then on the other hand, there are people who have just everyone's sort of dived back in, especially people who are younger, who don't have risk factors, and they want to go out. They want to reclaim some of the time that was lost. And people, more than anything right now, they want an experience. I mean, we've all just spent 2 years at home learning how to make martinis. I can make a fine martini. I'm sure everyone on this call can make a fine martini.
Go cocktails are the new thing. Which is, by the way, been going on in Europe for many, many years. So now you have to go. That was a positive, right? Is people are able to take home their cocktails or making it at home.
Well, we're hoping that New York State makes that permanent, right?
Yeah, we'll see. But for the people who are going out, I mean, people want an experience. It's no longer enough just to have the martini. You can make your martini at home. People want to go out and have a fabulous martini in a fabulous environment. It's no longer enough. People just want to go out and everyone wants to go big. Beautiful room, or at least a comfortable room with the people they haven't been able to see for 2 years. I mean, everyone's ready to go.
Sure. With vermouth that they can't find, or glassware that they don't have, right? Like they want it to be beautiful and different.
I've seen so many superlatives. It's not just the martini, it's the coldest martini. It's the most beautiful martini. It's the most garnished martini in the most beautiful room with the most sociable bartenders. It's an experience, whatever the experience happens to be. It's going to be an experience.
Yeah. Philana, you brought up an interesting topic or about to go. Our fifth panelist, who sadly cannot join us, Robin Epperson McCarthy, she created an RTD, which means ready to drink, if you don't know what that is. And that's just basically, a cocktail in a can that you can go into a store and grab, and it's cold and you can throw it in your cooler and off you go. And it saved her business, she said. She created it in the beginning of the pandemic. She was out in wine country, tasting room business wasn't so busy. On-premise sales were nothing, they were gone. So, this RTD really made a big difference for her. Kara, do you think that this is going to continue in the cocktail world? Are RTDs going to really continue on this fast growth track? They're poised apparently to double this year, which is wow. Okay. So
I think we're going to see it shake out. I've seen so many, I'm literally sitting at my desk. I have RTDs coming. I'm not drinking right now.
They're not just in a can, they're in bottles too.
They're in bottles, they're in cans, they're in pouches, they're everywhere. I think a lot of distilleries during the pandemic really kind of pivoted. Oops, I said it. I said the P word.
You were trying to avoid the word pivot, but it's okay.
They have switched to add RTDs to their portfolio. Everybody had one. And I think a lot of a lot of bartenders who weren't working as much as they would like to be came out with their own. And some of those are actually the most interesting ones, in my opinion. I've had a lot of really great bartender made RTDs and a lot of not so good RTDs that don't show off a lot of spirits to best effect. And I think it's time for things to get kind of shaken out. There's a little too much not so good, and it's time for the stuff that's really great to shine.
Agreed. Alisa, talking about RTDs, do you think that the beer world is going to get in on this? I mean, I know that there's been a little bit of a kerfuffle among some brewers with the RTD category, feeling like it's kind of bumping into the beer territory. And, for people who don't know, beer is taxed less per can than wine-based or spirits-based products. What do you think about that? Do you think your industry is going to find a way to adapt here?
Oh, absolutely. And I will tell you, to just pivot off of what Philana, Lydia, and Kara, what you were saying, it's, chaos breeds opportunity. And when you have chaos, there's opportunity. So what do you do in chaos? You find those opportunities. And what we were able to do during, the pandemic, we were like, all right, we've got marketing opportunities. We have to be creative. And I'll tell you, we were able to, people didn't know that women actually brew beer, or they were in the beer industry. They're like, wait a minute, you don't look like a brewer. And so you make what? And so we were able to tap into untapped demographics to really get first of all, the story out that women are in beer. And once we did that, we were able to break down those kind of like those barriers of conversation and bring people into our world. And then what did we want to do? Market to the moment. So once we started marketing to the moment, we were like, okay, we're as a company, we're on to something, because now we know there's an entire demographic of either women, people of color, or just people that were avid beer drinkers that were really excited about something new, something fresh in the industry. I will tell you, our tagline throughout the pandemic was, everyone is going to need to find a new rhythm soon. So if we weren't finding the rhythm back then, we need to find a new, I was ready to find the rhythm. Let's get out of this pandemic. Let's clear. So I think as in the beer trends, I think we are now seeing some new opportunities. So absolutely, Amy, the answer to your question is yes, RTDs, and we're coming up with some exciting beverage opportunities for the people in the beer world. So like I said, you put it out there, and if your messaging is clean and clear and you're making a good product, then why not? We're here for it. We saw a lot of things that we could do during being here for a year and a half, and just able to connect with consumers. It was all about having that time to connect with consumers. I will tell you, and I think everybody can agree on this panel, we got in front of people that we would have eventually I would have knocked, or we would have kicked down the door. But we got in front of people that we might typically, if they were not sitting and resting and Googling and searching things, so it was a blessing. It was a blessing. So yes, RTDs, I have a feeling they're in the beer world. We're very close.
Well, and you also in the beer world, you get to play with some really exciting packaging. And I see behind you, there's some very exciting packaging. And we were talking before about you hired a local artist to create this beautiful one-off release for you, particular beer. That's really exciting.
Yes, the bombshell. And the beauty of it was we collabed with two other female brewers here in Connecticut. The art was done by a local female artist. And so when you work with community, and you are not only what you're sipping on history, and you're sipping on what it takes when you collaborate and when you come together. That's the beauty of it. So yeah, we try to involve everyone, people that were not, again, in the beer industry, we try to involve them in this process. So it's a learning curve for all of us.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. See, now I'm going to use the word pivot. Darn it. All right. It's over. It's over.
It's over.
Philana,
One more.
I would like to pivot over to the topic of sparkling wine, which, wow, there's been a crazy uptick I mean, I think in 2020, there was a total downshift in champagne sales. And then 2021, it just went kaboom. And not just champagne, other kinds of sparkling wine too. I know your company handles some really gorgeous sparkling. So let's talk about this change in attitude. Why do you think people kind of went crazy for it during the pandemic? What do you think is driving it? What types of sparkling do you think are going to continue into the future, like to be the real movers in the category?
Absolutely. Thank you. Sparkling wine and champagne, it was in the past was always thought of as a celebratory occasion, right? You just order champagne as a celebration. But what we just saw, are discussing is the pandemic really created a mindset where you live for today and you celebrate with the people now and you're celebrating at home. So champagne and sparkling wine became something that people just wanted to drink all the time. I have always been a champagne drinker. So to me, it was always an everyday occasion. And what you see with champagne is obviously with all of the global shipping delays was the consumer demand. So it became a little bit more exclusive. It became harder to get, which of course, what happens when things become harder to get? You want it more, right? It's a human behavior. You just want it more. Mm-hmm. But the biggest star of the show is going to most likely be sparkling wine and Prosecco. Mm-hmm. Because champagne is going to go up in price. We're going through inflation. Prices are going to go up. It is normal. It makes sense. And on top of that, you're trying to bring the wines over here from Europe. So there's, of course, all the logistics that come with that. With sparkling wine and Prosecco, even though Prosecco is coming from Europe, it's going to be a little bit less expensive and it's going to have its moment. Prosecco will finally have its moment. That is our prediction. That's my opinion. But I know there's some really, really fantastic, you see it in the trends that especially domestic sparkling wine as well in the US is doing extremely well. And it is becoming an everyday occasion, which is exciting because you want people drinking in celebration and it doesn't have to be something where it's just for a specific moment. And so that creates memories and it also creates experiences.
Absolutely, 100%. Lydia, I know that you're a huge sparkling wine fan and an educator. So, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Who do you think is driving the growth of sparkling wine, in your opinion? Who's drinking it? Are they going to keep drinking it? And, do you think that the education level has changed a lot in the consumer?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And yes, I am absolutely a sparkling wine lover. I can drink it Monday through Sunday. I love it as a super versatile type of wine. I do agree with Philana. I think Prosecco is certainly driving that category in terms of volume. Obviously, financial capabilities of drinking champagne every day. If you can do it, wonderful. But for the most part, not a lot of us can. But I will say something that has surprised me as I'm talking to consumers, doing virtual events or in-person events, is the fact that they understand the second fermentation. They understand that champagne is very different to Prosecco. So I think something that has come out of the pandemic has been that people, obviously being at home, have educated, through other people or through themselves, through their own learning, or maybe speaking to their people at the wine stores or online, have tried to find, their knowledge and their passion, what they like about it. Some people are schooling me sometimes, so I think that it's a really wonderful thing to see. I think Cava should have also a great opportunity in the market. I think a lot of people might not know it or also think that it's less quality than Prosecco, which I also find very interesting. Because, technically it's a higher quality production method, but I don't think a lot of people know about it. But I think Cava should have another wonderful opportunity in the market. And I think also millennials should be driving that category. Most of my friends around my same age, because I'm also a millennial, drink a lot of sparkling wine on a daily or weekly basis. And I think they put it in cocktails, they drink it on their own, they pair it with food. So it's just something that's been really wonderful to see. Obviously, Francia Corta, she made comment, absolutely.
I love to hear people pairing it with food. That's super exciting too. You know, and this also brings up something that I just thought of, you know, the whole idea of, I don't know why I find this word so hard to say, premiumization of everything across the board, you know. And actually, I'd like each of you to kind of weigh in on this, like in your realm, where do you see this kind of uptick in what people are willing to spend on, you know, whether it's wine or sparkling wine or spirits. Philana, I'm going to start with you.
Thank you.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
You know, I love what Lydia was saying. It's so important because people are more educated now, right? And so what's driving premiumization? And there's also several categories. There's the engaged explorers, people in search of new wines that are accessible, but luxury because they're willing to spend a little bit more money for the experience. Millennials will continue to drive sparkling wine sales and also just consumer trends in general, because they are looking for everyday moments and they want to really want to like live that moment. And they also like to document that moment, which I think is very important. If you are a smart marketer, you're able to capture that. Industry insiders, tastemakers, right? Tastemakers in the hospitality industry are very important. They introduce consumers to new products and also to premiumization. As well, influencers in general, right? The new experience, the first to experience what's on trend. They're going to be the ones that will talk and do the narration. That's going to be your storyteller, which is so important to capture it. And then, of course, the trade. We can't underestimate the trade, the advocates of the category and the gatekeepers. Those are the ones that are going to drive the premiumization and also luxury. And it's important, if you know what's happening in the stores, a lot of the wines that are over $55 and up are growing. That segment is growing. And then you see the wines under, let's say, $9.99, they are going to see it's going to be a little bit of a decline, right? So people are willing to spend a little bit more money for the experience, but they are also going to learn more about your company as well.
Very cool. Alisa, are you seeing a premiumization in beer? Are people spending more for beer?
Oh, absolutely. I will tell you, we just did, because tastings now are back up and running. So we just had 2 within the last week, and people they're very specific now and about what they're buying and why they're buying it. And so we have seen yes, I will spend an extra 75 cents on this 6-pack, because yes, this is the gateway to the new lager. We're so used to lagers being, you know, the big brands, but I will spend we're here, you got to taste the product, you get to meet, you know, the producers. And so we absolutely are seeing that people will invest. And that's why I always say they're investing in visions and in companies that they're like, we'd rather spend that extra on something we know that you put a lot of work into. So absolutely, we're seeing it with our tastings, and they don't mind spending an extra $1 or an extra $1.25 for something that they can support it. So we're excited, you know, about that. I just think in general, people are not settling for less anymore. I think what we've all learned is that there's no more settling for less. We have one life to live, and if it comes through that in what you're purchasing, wine, spirits, you know, or beer, people are we're having these amazing conversations with consumers, because before they were just kind of virtual happy hours, but now we're talking to them and we're seeing exactly what they've been thinking, and their mindset is, no, we are going to strategically and consciously start purchasing now. So there is an uptick in that and what people are buying, and so we're excited about that.
Lydia, what do you see people spending their money on?
And I think everybody kind of hit really important points. I think people are definitely more picky. They might not be buying in large volumes, but they really want to know what's the story behind the bottle, who's making them, are they being responsible, are they taking care of the land and of their people. I think that's something we're just going to continue seeing. And if they can spend a couple more dollars on that, I think that's important.
That's a big
so, yeah.
Kara, please tell us about the spirits industry. Where are people spending their dough?
I mean, I completely agree with the thought that people want a story more than anything else. I mean, yes, 100%. I would say that in the spirits industry, the people who are spending, it's not a monolith. It's a lot of different motivations. There are definitely people who are looking for an experience, who are looking for something beautiful, luxurious. There are a lot of people who have felt kind of pent up during the pandemic and had extra money from, their stimulus check, or we just came off this huge bull market. At least until 5 minutes ago, we had a huge bull market anyway. And people felt empowered to use their money to buy something special to have at home, because they could. Definitely in the spirits industry, there's a lot of talk about the so-called unicorn. And you see a lot of the unicorn bottles in, I think, whiskey. You see a lot of that. You see a lot of people looking for something that's rare, vintage. What's the next Pappy? Next Pappy Van Winkle. Everybody wants something that's cool, bragging rights. I think there's also the juggernaut of tequila. There's a lot of celebrity backing. Everyone wants a celebrity brand. I know I've heard a couple other people already talk about the impact of celebrities and influencers across wine and beer, spirits. Oh yeah, the celebrities are definitely driving a lot of.
People will spend more money on that. Consumers spend
Yeah,
more.
everyone wants the rocks tequila, and they don't just want the rocks tequila. They want the brand new añejo that's maybe out on the market and maybe not.
Right.
Everyone wants something limited edition, rare, precious.
Leonardo DiCaprio just became a champagne guy. I mean, that just happened.
I have
a
thoughts
week or
about
so ago. Lydia, I was thinking when we were talking about sparkling, and it made me think of Pet Nat. And that made me think of the natural wine category, which has become, it went from being this kind of niche-y, cool kid in the corner with a brand to being this full-fledged normalized category in the wine industry. And and actually I think New York City just got its first, not even just, I think it was over the summer, got its first orange wine store. It's only orange wine. Doreen Winkler, I think, is the owner of that. So what's that like? Do you think it's about transparency, and is it just something new and exciting? And who's driving the natural wine category?
Yeah, I think it also all goes back to that storytelling, taking care of the land, taking care of the people. But it's so funny because a lot of people, if you ask what natural wine is, I think a lot of people won't be able to answer that question, even people in the industry, because it's become this wide term that it's not easy to categorize. Obviously you got the orange, you got the pet nuts, you got all of that, but is that sustainable? Like sustainable wines are in that category? Is it organic in that category as well? So it is hard to pinpoint, but I think people are just trying to be more conscious in the way that they purchase. And I think a lot of people have seen natural as an opportunity to market their wines, sometimes in a positive way and sometimes in a not so positive way. I always think about, no offense to Cameron Diaz, but her idea of like clean wine, which I find absolutely ridiculous. But it's just going back, and I think we will see just consumers being more discerning and like trying to learn a little bit more what that means, and picking and choosing their wines more carefully. So it's definitely an interesting concept, but not yet defined, in my opinion.
Do you think there's a little greenwashing going on, or?
Absolutely,
yeah.
Absolutely. And I think hopefully we will see that informed consumer kind of driving that category, because a lot of people don't really know. But hopefully we can make that change.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love Rita Jamai's comment, by the way. Hi, Rita.
Oh, what did you say?
Hi, Rita.
I want to acknowledge
Natural
Rita
wine.
Jamai, one of the greatest women in the world in wine, by the way. Hi.
She understands me. That's exactly.
If you don't have the comments on, Rita said natural, in quotes, wine doesn't really factually exist. Organic, biodynamic are more precise. Thank you, Rita. I appreciate that. So Alisa, I also kind of wanted to talk about this whole kind of resurgence in the beer world of your favorite beer, lagers, Lady Lager, as you are known, which I love. It's so cool. Yeah, like our IPAs and, you know, brawny IPAs and all these Belgian ales and all these things, are they kind of going the wayside, or is there just room for everybody now?
I will tell you, there is room for everyone, but we wanted to get, as a brand, ahead of the curve because, well, first of all, my grandmothers were lager drinkers. So my story goes back to the 1970s. So when you have grandmothers who are lager drinkers, it was just, I guess it was in the DNA. And so quick story, I'm in Cape Cod and I'm walking around this beer festival, and there's nothing that reminded me of just what I'm going to say is like just a normal beer, or what my palate felt was a normal beer. And, you know, we're walking around, and at one point I said, you know, do you think they have like, you know, something we could always buy at the store? They're like, you can't say that at a craft beer, you know, festival. And I'm like, yes, I can. I'm like, I just want a normal, like a lager. Does anybody have a lager? And I'm like, okay, I'm in the middle of New England. We are New England IPA completely crazy. Right. And on the way home, that's when I said, I'm going to make my own beer. That was it. The wheels started spinning. I researched the industry, and I'm like, yes, I am in New England, but I'm a lager lover. And so the trend is coming back because, again, craft beer, the New England IPA is completely outshadowed the lagers. And I said, you know, there is space in this industry for craft lagers. And so again, set out on the mission. And that's why we specialize in unfiltered lagers. It's because we don't, people, you know, lagers get a bad rap. Oh, it tastes like, and it tastes like this. And then you got to run to the, we've heard it all. So lagers get a bad, oh, it's watered down. We didn't want that. So we were like, we're going to unfilter our brews, which means we keep all that good stuff that makes a beer taste, really the hops, all of this that you just want to taste. We don't filter that out. So yeah, the malts, I mean, just, so we knew we wanted to make a lager with flavor. And if we did that, we had a chance in New England around all of, you know, the, you know, IPAs, and shout out to my IPA friends, and because they're all here, they're brewers. And they told me I was crazy. They said, you're making a lager in New England. And I said, absolutely. You guys are running to the you know, IPA fire. I'm getting out of it. I didn't want to I just said, I'm going to make something to pay homage to my grandmothers and have something that I actually, if I go to a beer festival, I have something that I can actually drink. And so and Kara could probably speak on this. There is a trend that's coming absolutely back on that lager. And again, like I said, we are in that position to be that gateway. If we want to get your palates, you know, not to go straight to an IPA, but you want to wean off of some of the stuff you've been drinking for 30, 40 years. Right. We have a lager that we believe that is just, it's perfect timing again.
And you don't have to wear cargo shorts.
Right, no. Absolutely.
Well, and the typical ABV, alcohol by volume for a lager is what does it kind of hover around?
It can range from a 3.8 to and I know our unfiltered lager, our flagship is 5.5. Mm-hmm. We keep the ABVs low because we want them to be clean, credible, you know, refreshing, and not like, you know, hit your palate and just, you know, we don't want the one and done. Mm-hmm. We don't want the one and done beer. So yeah, that's usually, you know, the range, you know, for a lager.
Session beers, right? Do we call them session beers sometimes? things that you drink, you can drink many in a session. I don't know. That's what my
Yeah.
beautician says. What do I know? I don't know anything. You know, but that low ABV thing we're talking about, Kara, I would love for you to talk about this trend of low and no ABV cocktails. Like, and where is it coming from? And is it gonna last? And, you know, who's doing exciting stuff in this area?
It's interesting, we're talking about low ABV and beers. No one has mentioned the S word yet. Seltzer, hard seltzer.
Ugh, sorry.
I heard that.
Sorry. I'm sorry. It's all my fault. It's all my fault. Yes, we should talk about it, but I
It's
just
a visceral reaction, I know. Not my cup of tea either, cup of seltzer. But I do think it's had a bit to do with, you know, edging us towards the low and no ABV, because you kind of draw, there's like a through line from hard seltzer, wellness, zero proof bottle shops. There's room for all of it. It's kind of this interesting expansion of the drinking universe, that now there is something for almost everyone, where I don't know that we could have said this a couple of years ago. There's room for people who are not drinking, or who are not drinking sometimes, or want something a little less potent. And I think it's there's kind of a creep across all different spheres of the beverage universe. It's cocktails, it's ABV beers. I feel like the wine universe, maybe there's some pressure to keep the alcohol level down a little bit from time to time. But
absolutely.
but zero proof has been a real boon. I mean, it's really interesting. Really, it's a good way to include people.
And maybe it's causing some more interest in some older things, like, or older meaning, you know, historical, like vermouth or sherry, or things that are just typically a bit lower, and just nice on ice and delicious and complex on their own.
I hear the word crushable a lot.
Yes. I believe Alisa just used it. Yeah.
There you go.
I want to say
That is a thing. That is it is a thing. I will tell you, people they don't want to have to, you know, just things are hard enough. And if you have to like, just try to, you know, down something, you know, people are just kind of like, you know, easy breezy now. So yes, crushable. We hear that a lot. I know at least in the beer industry, I don't know about the wine and spirits, but.
Yeah, I can attest to that as a millennial, younger. Crushable is something we use all the time.
So you bring up a good point, Kara and Alisa, and I mean, everyone on this panel, about low alcohol wines. And if you look at, I mean, the philosophy with Carlton McCoy Jr., right, my boss, our CEO, and our winemakers, we have low alcohol wines, right? 13.5 is the benchmark, somewhere around 14%. Our wines over at Demeine Estates are very low alcohol, but they taste fantastic. So there is something to be said about having a low alcohol wine. It's actually a better tasting wine as well, because you allow the wine to really reveal itself. And it shouldn't be, I think low alcohol wines is more of a quality measure in our philosophy, versus having it be a trend, right? You want to make the wine to the best to its ability, and it comes with low alcohol.
You know, Philana, now that since I have you here for a second, you know, it's fascinating to me that you took this position at Demeine Estates in January of 2021. So like smack in the middle of the pandemic. I mean, that's a lot. How did that shape your goals and your objectives? And are you working differently as an importer distributor?
Thank you. Yeah, you know, I actually accepted the role from Carlton on March 8th, to be exact. So on International Women's Day, which he didn't realize. He just, and I work for an incredible human. I consider it a gift to work for such a great leader, and his story is fantastic. Demeine Estates is a fine wine sales and marketing organization. We're also an importer. We were born out of the pandemic, and we actually saw an opportunity in which we wanted to represent the best regions in the world. We also have domestic owned properties and be able to sell it in the trade and represent it in the wholesale market. And what you notice is there's many producers that are being lost in the mix because of the distributor consolidation. If you look at the amount of distributors that there are versus the amount of producers that there are less distributors today. So how do you remain relevant with the distribution market? Lydia, you know very well, you work for Taub family, and Mark Taub is an incredible importer and very, very well known. So I have great respect for your company. You know, we learned very early on that the distributor is unable to successfully focus on so many wineries at the same time. So Demeine Estates is a compelling option for luxury wine producers that are getting lost in larger import portfolios, and we work with an extremely strong wholesaler network. We're very nimble. We look for wineries that we partner with that have heritage. We are legacy owned. We refine legacies. So we buy Carlton and Galen Lawrence, our proprietors. They actually look at wineries that we can take on and build upon their legacy and build long-term stability, which is very, very important. And as an importer, we want to make sure that we match their values. Do they have the social, are they checking the social boxes, which is very important? Do they have environmental philosophies? Are they long-term into agriculture? Do they understand what's happening? And are they, you know, I think what's great that Carlton always says is you want to make sure that they're good people as well, right? You want to work in an environment where they value your time and you value their time and there's respect there. So those are, you know, that's what we learned from, I think, just in our businesses and past experiences and life experiences. So Demeine is, you know, an incredible, it's an adventure of a lifetime. I'm super excited to continue. We're in our 1 year and we're growing at an exponential rate. We also have a Burgundy. We are going to be announcing 2 new French portfolios and an Italian very soon. So the team is going strong.
That's exciting. You know, talking about working with good people, you know, I know you've always been a really great advocate over your career for other women, for lots of people in the industry, and you have been really working toward equity in our industry. I know you created some initiatives that I'd love for you to just talk about a little bit here, if you don't mind. One of them, which I think is on hold right now, but it was super exciting and is super exciting, Be the Change, which our very own New York Dame Leah Jones was a co-founder of, I do believe. Hello, Leah, yay.
Yes.
And also Dream It, Live It. And we love to hear more about these things. Please tell me.
Absolutely. Be the Change was created in 2020. We've had 2 job fairs, and it was a diversity job fair that was done digitally to increase diversity at the beverage industry level. And we worked with a company named Brazen and I had 3 incredible co-founders, Leah Jones, Rania Zayat, and Cara Bertone. And it was a phenomenal time and an extraordinary time in our life because it all came out of the pandemic and then all the social unrest that was going on in the world. And I say that it's extremely emotional and also important when you want to create an initiative on your own and really share it to the world. And I'd always want to take my own experience and talk about my own experience versus projecting an experience onto somebody else, because it's not fair to do that. And so from my experience with Be the Change, we wanted to really implement change and open up the industry and the beverage world to diverse perspectives and make sure that diversity was at the table. If you look at the wholesaler, right, today it's a much better, much more improved. There's women at the head of the table now, but back in the day when I started 20 years ago, there were no women at the table and there was actually no diversity at the table. And when you don't have diversity and women at the table, you're not going to have a successful business. And so what we found at Be the Change, we wanted to open up the industry to make sure that anyone, despite their resume, it's about experience, can get a job digitally. And it was almost like speed dating in a way. And we made so much change and power. It was such a powerful initiative, but it also took, I think we all changed from it, right? When you're doing an initiative, you change as well. And when I learned, Julia Coney gave me some of the greatest advice. She said, Philana, it is a journey. It's not a race. You can't fix it overnight. And you have to forgive yourself in the process and forgive the people that are working with you. And whether or not they're at the beginning or they're more advanced in their diversity journey, we have to be patient. And that was the number one lesson that I learned. And I learned it from my 3 co-founders. And I'm very, very thankful. They're incredible women. And we created something very special. And from Be the Change, I also learned that the company that I was working with, my values had changed. And it was time for me to make a move. Because when you work for, I worked at the second largest wholesaler, when you work for a machine and you realize that all the decisions you're making, you're at the table, but are you affecting the culture as much as you could? Are you affecting the machine, or are you on this wheel going around and around in a circle and you're not able to affect culture? And even though it was a positive experience, it was 20 years that I'm so grateful for, I finally made the decision it was time for me to make a change because my values changed. And that's when Carlton McCoy and I decided to work together. And it was the greatest decision of my life. And from here, being at Demeine Estates, I got together with my team and we decided to create our own initiative, which is Dream It, Live It. And the Dream It, Live It initiative is also Demeine Estates solidifying our commitment to fostering diversity in the wine industry. And we have an annually selected professional partnership opportunity aimed towards wine entrepreneurs. So what we say is inclusion has always been powerful. We want to make sure that minority-owned businesses are successful. In order to do that, you have to have access. Lack of access is one of the top reasons why minority-owned businesses do not get a chance. We want to provide access. We want to help them run a business. We want to provide mentorship opportunities and then have them work across departments, cross-functionally, so they can understand how to work with marketing, how to work with sales, how to do advertising, and to build a business together. So we work with we select professional groups. We're working with a woman right now who I love dearly. Her name is Tish Wiggins. She does Tish Around Town. She has her own travel company. She's bringing out 20 wine enthusiasts to Napa Valley. And, I opened up my network as well. We wanted to introduce her to other wineries besides ours. So the CEO of Domaine Carneros, Remy Cohen, I want to give her a shout out. She's fantastic. Silver Oak also got involved. And we wanted to make sure that she could create a travel and wine program to best suit her business and to open up and have her gain access. And that, I think, being in this position today, what I've learned most is it is our role as women to ensure that everyone has an opportunity, but we have to provide them not only the resources, but the confidence that they can do the job and be successful.
Absolutely. Thank you, Philana. That's amazing. Lydia, I think I'm coming at you right now. You've been such a dynamic and smart and great person in the industry in such a short amount of time. You've accomplished quite a bit. And when we were talking before this event, you had said to me that, you were thinking to yourself, you know what, like, I can do better than this. I can raise more than myself. And that just hit me right in the heart. Can you please talk to me more about what inspired Hispanics in Wine and how that's going and what you've been doing?
Man, I can't speak after Philana. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, absolutely. And I think there's a lot of the points that Philana mentioned about opening doors for yourself and other people in the industry, and that idea of diversity in the positions of power that influence the industry. That's so important. So Maria Calver and I, she's from Ecuador, we met in Colangelo Partners, a PR agency, a few years ago. And we always noticed it was some things that we always talked about, that we were the only women or the only women of color in most of the spaces that we were moving. We were handling or managing accounts, developing trade tastings. And, most people wouldn't assume that we were the ones organizing all these things. So it was an ongoing conversation, but I think with everything, the pandemic opened, we were at home, we were seeing all of these injustices. I guess they've always been there, but for some reason they just felt, stronger during the past 2 years. So yeah. Obviously looking at Be the Change, looking at Black wine professionals, even the work that the women at LesDames have done, because, I'm a scholarship recipient. If somebody doesn't know, like I was one of the scholarship recipients, I think in 2017. So that opened a lot of doors for me, and I was able to connect with incredible women in the organization, and the financial help helped me further my career. So once the pandemic hit and we saw all of these people kind of like taking the power to their own, and creating opportunities, opening doors, we also felt we had something to kind of do for our specific community. I was born in Panama. I've been here for 10 years. So the Latino Hispanic community is something that's very important to me. And it's so strange because we are such an important part of the industry as a larger scale, but for some reason we're not being seen in the more executive role. So I think we just wanted, with Hispanics in Wine, create a space where people can come to us and we can guide them as they're trying to figure out what they want to do in the industry, but also let them know that you can work in wine is not just working in the vineyards. Wine is working in distribution and sales and PR and marketing. So opening those doors as well, and also providing educational opportunities. We're actually super excited because we just filed our nonprofit status, because for the most part, we started in September 2020. We've been partnering with organizations and to create these scholarships. So now we're going to be able to do that and do proprietary activities, which we're very excited about. But I think that's sort of where that came from, that thing that we wanted to be that hub where people can come to us and we can just guide you, connect you with mentors, provide you with financial assistance, or just be that helping hand as you figure out what you want to do in this industry, and just know that you can do more than what the idea of people telling you, oh, you're never going to be a CEO. And that's something that we've seen and heard from so many people, and even myself. I was always kind of taught that idea. It's like, oh, you have to kind of look down, do your work, and you're going to be successful no matter what. But I think just shaking off those things and just know that you can reach for the stars and you'll be fine.
Absolutely. And congratulations on your not-for-profit status. That's really exciting. Very cool. Alisa, you and I had talked a little bit about Brienne Allen from Notch Brewing, and the interesting, the sort of bringing the brewing industry to a head with sexism, honestly. And she was a brewer. She had experienced some, for people who didn't know, she had experienced some sexual harassment, and she just tweeted it out there on social media. And there was a cavalcade of other women in brewing and in the beer world who got back to her and were like, yeah, this happens. I know you've done some really good work for women of color, people of color, just to change the playing field in brewing. I'd love to, please tell us more about what you've been up to.
Oh, absolutely. We have a Change in the Air festival that we just hosted this last year, and the proceeds go to Brew at You. It's a brewing science program, and it's for Black brewers specifically. And out of that inception, on that committee, we now have 10 students who were enrolled, and I just had the pleasure of bringing on an intern this week, and she is fantastic. And you know what? It's those things that you hear about, in Notch Brewing, the sexism, that those are the real stories, because sometimes when you don't think that people should be in a space, they're going to take advantage of that. And what we wanted to do through Change in the Air is we wanted to really change that perception and make sure that people had those opportunities. The more you see people of color and women in a tap room or behind a mash, tun when you're brewing, it becomes very real. But then again, I will tell you the economics of this. A couple of the reasons, yeah, I'm paying homage to my grandmothers, but when I found out that the beer industry was $114 billion, and women and people of color were getting 0.0005% of $114 billion. At that point, I said, if I'm gonna drink it, I'm gonna own it.
Yeah.
I said, I'm not drinking it anymore unless I own it. And so it was on this mission to how these scholarships and why people are in. It's because, again, it was a passion, project. We want to be the people to make sure that you have employment opportunities. There's like, we're creating wealth. We're bringing jobs into communities. It's so, again, I always say it's bigger than us and a can of beer. This is about scholarships. It's about education. It's about building more tables so we can bring more seats to this industry, so that we don't have the sexism. Because when you have that sexism, that meant that someone just completely took you for granted or said they're not supposed to be here anyway. And we need to break that. And if we could do that through, Philana, you opening up doors, Lydia, you breaking down doors, Kara, you writing, these stories, it is so impactful. And Brew et Chew, it's change in the air. And I will tell you, we are currently taking applications, and we do outreach. It's in Connecticut, but anyone from around the world can really get into this Black Brewers Science Program and this Women's Brewers Science Program. We need more of us ladies that are on this panel running around in these industries.
Absolutely. And you
100%.
said something. Not only are you going to break it down, we're going to eliminate it.
Eliminate.
That's it.
Yes, yes.
I'm there. Yes. Heels and all.
I'm gonna just check in with the powers that be behind the scenes here. Do I have another minute for another question, or should we go to questions from the peoples out there? Am I okay? I
Yeah.
don't hear anything. Okay, I'm okay. Okay, great. Because I wanted to talk about that Eric Asimov article that was so upsetting, saying that millennials are ruining the wine industry. I mean, what the heck? Do we think that millennials are going to make people, or change the wine industry and change, kill the wine industry, which is sort of what I walked away from that article with, or are they just drinking differently? Are they just sort of being more experimental? And specifically, I'm hoping some of you might be interested in answering the question, are millennials going to kill wine collecting? And I guess Lydia, as our resident millennial, perhaps you can sort of kick in there and start.
I read that article, and most of my friends drink wine. Like I really don't understand, and like
I don't understand
my friends in the non-industry as well. I will say maybe it's just like you said, we're drinking differently, and I think we've kind of talked about that conversation over and over again through this panel, because it's something that we're seeing, that people are just maybe not buying in large quantities, but they're buying consciously. They're buying stories, they're buying what's behind the bottle. So I think most of my friends, even my non-wine friends, sometimes they come up to me because they know I'm the wine person of the group. It's like, oh, I found this orange wine, and the winemaker is a woman, and she's from anywhere like Poland, and she does these amazing things, and they're so excited to share that story. So I think that's what we're seeing. In terms of wine collecting, I think millennials, let's be real, most of us are broke. I think we might not have the spending power that other generations had in the past. A lot of us don't even rent apartments or rent houses, not necessarily own houses. So having a space for a cellar, it's not as easy as you might think. But I think there is still, and going back to something that Philana said that kind of stuck with me, is that we're drinking in the now. And I think that's something that I continue to see. I think we're enjoying bottles. We may not be getting the 100-point wine to keep in 20 years, and enjoy. We might just be enjoying it now. With that beautiful champagne. Maybe keeping it for 2 weeks, but we might just drink it now.
And fresher styles of wine, and certainly things like that too.
You know what's important about this discussion too, which is a whole nother subject, is the positive thing that happened with millennials today in the work environment, also in the wine industry, is they brought to light mental health. That's what they did. And we have to almost thank them for that, because when I'm part of the, I think the X generation, I think it's the
Generation X.
Generation X, right? That's where I'm at.
That's us. Nobody cares about us.
I'm 45.
So unfair.
I'm in my 40s. If I went to my boss 20 years ago and said, I need to take a couple mental health days, I wonder how he would have taken it versus today. And you really have to thank millennials for the fact that they are about authenticity, they're driving honesty, and it's important that we do take some time off to really enjoy life and to have a work-life balance. They've defined that.
Yeah.
And that is going to, and that will also drive positive growth in the wine business and in the spirits business. That's my opinion, by the way. So just.
I do see, I see something in the questions here. Sally Larette, I hope I'm pronouncing your last name correctly, and pardon me, Sally, if I am not. It is a lot harder in recent years to be an informed buyer of delicious wine without the help from the vendors. Anyone care to kind of weigh in on that? I'm not sure. Is it harder to be informed? I feel like it's easier to be informed. And about spirits too. Kara, like, what do you like? Isn't it so, there's so much information at our fingertips now?
Yeah, you might even say there's too much. There's kind of a point of overwhelm.
Yes.
And it's funny, we're talking about the impact of the millennials. I'm curious how Generation Z is going to impact sales of everything. I mean, I see one of my nieces is now 21, and I'm interested to see where she's going to gravitate and what she's going to drink.
Mm-hmm. My nephew, who's 22, he's super into beer and craft beer, and he has a little podcast that he does, which is really cool and fun. And he's really into cocktails, and he was telling me all about his rich simple syrup recipe the other day, and he was very proud and very excited. And this kid couldn't like boil an egg, like 5 years ago, so it's great.
Amy, I will tell you, those are
everything's been demystified.
Yeah.
It's all at your fingertips, but I think
Right.
wine is more mysterious. A lot of the bottles look alike. And I think until people have really traveled and been out and really experienced the world, it's harder to put into context, which I think is why what we're all doing is so important.
Yeah.
Yeah, the millennials are actually, they're driving like the podcast. I will tell you, I've never sat on so many Zooms and podcasts, but it's good because they are driving. I mean, they're putting a different perspective, I think, on the industry. And so sometimes I just think that, they're too much, it's too much of this. But honestly, I've learned some marketing techniques from these, millennials, especially in the beer. So like you were saying, I think it was your nephew's podcast. They will get the cans, you sit on the podcast and you drink.
Yeah.
I mean, responsibly, but everybody's just like, what's the flavor of this? There's so many out there. So they are diving into, listen, let's find quality, let's find story, and why should this new crew, drink it? So I'm seeing a shift.
I'm not seeing any other questions. If anyone has any questions, please shoot them on in here. I see a couple of comments. An anonymous attendee said, wine used to be such a pleasure. What do you mean used to be? No, super big pleasure still. Come on, get out there, get a beautiful bottle, get enchanted, try something new. No more questions. Okay, please send your favorite quotes and moments and insights from tonight onto your social media platforms, please, all of you. Add the hashtag, the next big sip, and tag us at LesDames New York. That's Dom with an S, it's plural. And gosh, all of you amazing women, thank you so very much.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
brilliant and insightful and wonderful. And thank you everybody for attending. This has been a lot of fun, and we'll see what happens next year.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Great.